and welcome to Fuel Mixologist. On today's episode, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to give you pretty much all of the information that I know about Holley squarebore base plates. You know, what are the different sizes, what are the different models, what are the different uses, and also what are some of the common problems that you could encounter when dealing with Holley squarebore bases. So without further ado, let's make a start and we'll see where we get to. Now let's start from the beginning. What Holley calls the squarebore base plates is a series of base plates of different sizes, and what they are is because all the holes in the base plate are the same diameter, but the base itself is not square in shape, it's rectangular. Yeah, so try to confuse you a bit. So whenever you see four holes that are the same, it's a squarebore base plate, but the mounting holes form a rectangle. They're not exactly a square. Now there is only one exception, that you have got a carburetor that Holley did for Chrysler in about the 1950s, end of the 60s, beginning of the 70s. That is a squarebore base, i.e. it has the same spacing, but the secondary is larger than the primary. So there is already one exception there. So basically what you've got here, there is a very easy way of knowing the size of a Holley base plate if you look at the numbers stamped on the throttle plate. And I'm missing one, which is the 180. I'll explain it in a minute. So casting number 103 or stamp number 103, this is for the 390 CFM carb. 107 is for the 450, then 109 is for the 600 CFM carburetor, that's the list, 1850. Then 172 goes all the way from 650 CFM all the way to 800, and there's another one that I'm missing, which is stamped 180, and that's the 850 CFM. So now I need to explain why the 172 goes all the way from 650 to 850. Well, what we've got here is a double pumper body, and we've got a 600 base, and this one in particular is a 650 double pumper. Why do I know this? Because I don't know if you can see here, there is a chamfer at the bottom. So basically the 650 CFM double pumper is essentially a 600 body with this chamfer at the bottom. So now what I've done here is I overlaid the 750 base plate onto the body, and as you can see, it matches up perfectly the chamfer to the throttle, to the base plate, and therefore that's how you create a 650. And then for the other sizes, the 750 has larger openings here in the venturi and here. So that's how you create a 650, a 750 and an 800 from the 172 plate. Okay, so now let's discuss what are the differences. How do you identify a vacuum secondary base plate, and how do you identify a mechanical secondary base plate that's a double pumper? So if you look at the double pumper, what you would see is that it has the two arms for the pivot of the pump there, and that's how you can tell this is a mechanical secondary carb, with again two exceptions, which are number one, the 660 center squirter carbs. They are from the 60s. They're a racing application, And also there was another smaller carb, a 450 list 1848 I think it is, that again it's a mechanical secondary carb but hasn't got the secondary pump, so it's not technically a double pumper. And as you can see here, this is your typical vacuum secondaries base plate, which hasn't got, as you can see here, it hasn't got, instead of having this arm for the pump, it generally has an outlet for the power brakes or whatever it is. This is full manifold vacuum. So that's how you tell the plates apart. Let's talk about primary shafts for a minute. So this shape is the most common one used by Holley, and what you can see in here, these are slightly different, and the difference between these two is that this one has the throttle kickdown for an automatic transmission and this one hasn't. This one is like a Ford linkage that has linkage for kind of other bits and bobs, so it's another shape. This is your typical marine primary shaft, and I'm going to show you something interesting about marine primary shafts in a minute. And this one is a different, this is a very early kind of double pumper arm, and basically what it does is it actuates differently with the secondary shaft. So let me show you now the characteristics of the marine carbs. So this is an easy way to tell apart a marine shaft from an automotive shaft. So this one here is an automotive shaft, and if you look at it, what it does is that the throttle plate is mounted straight over the shaft, whilst this is your typical marine configuration, and generally marine carbs tend to have a secondary shaft that is made of bronze, and this one, which the throttle plate actually mounts on this side rather than on the other side. So when you see the throttle plate mounted like this, it is a sure sign that this is a marine base plate. Okay, so secondary shafts now. So when you've got this style of primary shaft, you need to use this style of secondary shaft because it is what is actuated by a linkage from here. Whilst if you've got this style of primary shaft, like this one here, you will always find it mated to this one because they link right here. And now is the turn for vacuum secondary shafts, and what you can see here, hopefully, is that they are generally either this, well, this is the marine shaft which I've talked about already, and of the automotive shafts there are a couple of models. As you can see, this one is slightly longer than this one, and that sometimes happens. So if you are kind of mixing and matching base plates, you need to make sure that you have the correct spacing here, so that the carburetor actuates correctly. But other than that, if you're just rebuilding a base plate that came with a factory shaft, just put the same factory shaft. However, if you have to change it, you need to measure this to make sure that you're putting the same length base plate here. Which brings me nicely to problems that you can encounter with this unit. So one of the things, if you see this base plate here, if you see around here, there is a crack. And these base plates, Holley squarebore base plates, can be quite, when people try to yank them off the manifold, sometimes they break around here, around here, around here, or around here. This is a common problem with base plates. Another common problem, you always have to inspect base plates for cracks. So look at this line here, or sometimes there could be some cracks here or between the throttle plates. That's quite important. And I mean, in this particular unit, although it appears to be a crack, I don't know if you can see it from there, but the crack doesn't go all the way through to there. So I think this base plate is very much salvageable. So I hope you got kind of something out of this. I've been working with Holleys for 10 years now, more than that. So this is kind of my thoughts about the Holley base plate. So thank you very much for your questions, for your comments, and I'll see you on the next episode.